Welcome to the Browne Amplification Podcast with your hosts, Ben, Dave, and Adam.
That's a great intro.
There it is. There's the intro.
That was it.
Well done.
I do what I can. You know, it's hard to multitask whilst trying to record a podcast. But this is our first one. Welcome, friends.
Family.
Hello, hello.
And,
People who feel sorry for us, and so they're listening.
Yeah, for all of you that thought that you needed another podcast in your life, we decided you also needed another podcast in your life.
Yeah,
So
you were correct.
you were correct. So here we are to present to you our thoughts on life and all things guitar pedal related and other stuff as well.
Well, the good thing that's going to come out of this is I don't think my mom has figured out the podcast thing yet, but if I'm on it, we have a guaranteed listener, and she will figure out
That's a legitimate reason.
how to listen to podcasts. I call them pity listens.
Yeah,
So, you know,
nice. So the purpose of this podcast, honestly, is to give people a little bit of insight into the behind the scenes of what we do here at Browne Amplification, and just kind of share ideas, thoughts, talk about some of our pedals, talk about some of the things that we're working through as a company, and
What we're working through emotionally.
which
our
probably
emotions.
affects the company, arguably. So it's all vital, pertinent.
It's all the stuff that we want to share in a kind of more longer format rather than just kind of short snippets. Social media makes everything, 1 minute to 2 minutes long. And yeah, that's great, but sometimes we got things to say, folks. We got things to share, right?
It's our attention span.
We got naps to take.
I need something to fall asleep to. It has to be, which I have to listen to something to fall asleep every night, but it has to be just interesting enough that it keeps your mind off the existential crisis, but not so interesting that it keeps
That it
you
wakes
up.
you up.
So that's what podcasts are perfect for, or these kind of podcasts.
I had an amazing nap on a plane recently listening to some great podcasts that some friends are doing, and I really enjoyed it. And I feel like I, retained everything that was said, at least enough that it was interesting and just to agree with what you're saying.
And then I'll restart it the next night where I kind of dozed off, and I figure through osmosis, it takes me a while, but I'll get through the whole thing. And if I do, say this podcast in sports terms, we should just be the golf of podcasts. Sunday afternoon, you're like, it's got to have something on the TV, and it's just kind of cathartic, relaxing, really pleasant, low applause.
What we really need is something in the background just to take away the existential crisis of life.
If you put
Isn't
your
that what
in,
guitar pedals are?
So this is why people play guitar, right?
Right.
I need something to do to take away the existential crisis.
and we're gonna put binaural beats. So if you put your headphones in, you won't even notice they're there, but you'll just slowly be lulled to sleep.
Binaural beats.
Uh,
Is that
so-
the name of our podcast?
Binaural beats, maybe. So I want to obviously introduce both of you guys. This is the first time maybe some people even knew there was more than just Dave that's associated with Browne Amps. And so I'm Ben, and I have some part to play in this company. I help manage some of the back end and ship pedals and, make sure the business functions and runs. This is Dave. Dave is our resident genius, engineer, smart guy that makes all the pedals, right?
Something like that. People say things like that. It always makes me feel awkward.
Makes you feel awkward. It's why there's a halo behind his head. If you can see on the camera right there, it's because we want
looking
to
to see.
Saint Brown.
we want to make sure that he's not his sainthood is
Just want to
thrust
make it
upon him.
clear who is in charge of this.
I have to be in charge? That sounds terrible.
It's a
No, just
terrible idea.
responsible. That might be worse.
also
Actually,
sounds terrible.
I know.
Nobody wants that. And then Adam is our resident guitar player expert. He also helps do a couple of back-end things as well, helps us with our design and different things like that. But he tests a bunch of our pedals, but he's also kind of the ears. So Dave makes something, and Adam makes sure that it sounds like a guitarist would need it to sound. Maybe?
Yeah.
Adam's my sounding board. If I think something is good or right or done, he's like a really safe place that I trust 100% to say, did we get it or did we not get it?
Right.
And, you know, most of the time we're landing pretty much on the same opinion of whether something is excellent or not, I think.
It's true. I feel like that. Yes, that is accurate.
We have a good synergy.
Yes, synergy. It's probably because you taught me what good tone was as well. So then
Wow.
it's because when you make something, it's like anything else. You make anything, you always overanalyze what you make. It's like I've been learning how to do graphic design for some stuff Ben and I are working on. And when I was just making it for fun, and people were like, oh, this is kind of cool. I was like, oh, great. I wasn't thinking about it. I was just doing it for fun. It didn't mean anything. Then the minute you have to deliver the final product, you start overanalyzing everything.
Right.
I think that color, I don't know, that shape. Oh, man. And so you just need the outside person to be like.
You need trusted sounding boards.
What should have taken possibly an hour, is now taking 7 hours to do.
I don't need to be attacked this early in the morning, Ben.
That's right.
In my defense, there was things that I did not realize mattered.
In my defense. I think anytime a sentence is going to start with "in my defense," you probably should just shut it right down.
It's pretty much a guilty verdict.
So tell us about the origin of the protein.
So the protein came about because Adam came to me and was touring a lot. Yes?
Yes.
With a lot of backline gear. It was not the sort of tour where you get to bring your own amp, like a fancy tour.
What is that like?
Well, it's, there's still some problems with that. But sometimes you're touring with backline and sometimes you're touring with rental gear. And you show up and you play on what you get. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's great. And sometimes this is not what I ordered, ladies and gentlemen. But you can't, you don't want to be the guy who doesn't play because they brought you a solid state crate instead of a tube amp like you asked for.
It does just look bad when you make excuses. Like, sorry, my stuff sounds bad. It's not me. It's the gear.
Right.
Okay. The artist doesn't care.
You can only use that one 2
parts.
times per year.
That's when there's a catastrophic failure.
Right.
The amp smokes and you're like, obviously. This is not right.
They let the smoke out. It no longer works. So Adam came to me and said, I've been using these 2 pedals, a blues breaker, some clone of a blues breaker, and some ODR1 type pedal, and they were working really well for you, but you had some issues with them. The ODR1 had too much gain, too much bass, and the blues breaker one, had some stuff that you wanted modified. So we started putting those 2 pedals into one box, one circuit, trying to solve the power issues of them sharing power and trying to solve all the, little idiosyncrasies that would make it exactly how you wanted it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, no, I had those 2 pedals. I've been searching for a long time because my types of tours were not probably legitimate tours in the sense of I was mainly flying to gigs to play. So you're limited on what you can bring. Well, yeah, I was just, not on a bus. It wasn't, it was fly dates, which...
We're so sorry to hear about how difficult your touring experience was, by the way.
Actually, I know at first I was like, did I miss out on a lot in life? Then I
You're like,
have spent time with friends on tour here and there. And I was like, I'm kind of fine with not living in a bus. I don't feel like I missed out. I have no FOMO. But the inconsistency in backline was definitely pretty insane. And then we always played with in-ears, which definitely amplifies anything that's bad. Where if you're just playing with the amp bouncing around, it's way more forgiving. So I found a couple pedals that I liked, and it's one of those things where you have an idea. You're like, I think this could be cool. I think there's something here, but it's not quite the idea.
Yeah.
And I brought it to Dave, and he dialed them in to what I was kind of hearing maybe they could be, but had no idea how to make that happen.
Yeah.
And he took them and did that.
And I spent years trying to convince you that the green side should be a modified tube screamer because I've got a version of the tube screamer that I love. I mean, it started as a tube screamer. It is what it is now, but it's my favorite overdrive, and I really tried to convince you that that should be the green side. But you were really sold on that ODR1, based circuit because it had a little thicker low end, and it was a little better tool for shaping an amp that was not quite doing what you needed it to do live. That green side really brought it to life.
I'm quietly stubborn. I just figure if I just
I don't
keep
think
going,
it's that quiet.
well, not quite. I try to be quiet. You know,
Quietly
if I just
stubborn?
keep saying maybe,
I've known you a long time.
it'll just we'll get what I want. Which now, actually, when we've played your Tube Screamer, which I love, in front of the Protein into the Blues Breaker, it is really magical. But yeah, that's why we went with the Nobles based ish side, because I wanted something that with in-ears and a really thin sounding backline that would add some low end. But with your amps and stuff, when we were playing through it, it was really magical. So I can definitely see why that would be an awesome choice to have in front. So if you have a Protein, just get Dave's Tube Screamer. We're going to do that, right? We're going to have a Tube Screamer.
Are we talking about that?
Are we talking about that?
Are we? I don't
Apparently
I don't think
we
we're not
did.
talking about that.
Yeah.
I have had a lot of guys ask me to do a Tube Screamer, which, you know, part of me is like, the last thing the world needs is another Tube Screamer-ish pedal. But
Sidecar.
I like mine.
Yeah.
So if other people want it, I'll probably make a few for them, but we'll see where that goes.
Well,
I'm about to get 45 emails from people asking for that particular pedal.
well, no, what we're gonna, so I'm just gonna,
time.
I'm gonna do a re-intro here. I might have mentioned something I shouldn't have mentioned. So if you just heard a lot of beeping out, that was my fault.
Adam
Are we
swears
cutting
a
it?
lot.
I don't know.
Oh, what are we beeping?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't think I was supposed to
Adam's
mention the
foul
other
language.
green pedal.
Oh, no, it's fine.
It won't be.
Carry on.
It can't be green.
Oh, that's yeah. Well, it's
Well,
not.
maybe
gonna
it
be.
can.
Other classic green pedal meaning. But yeah, so that's why I was stuck on the Nobles, was simply the in-ear component and that thickening thing. And then you took it, and it could be a little flubby. The Nobles ODR one was, and it also could get really fizzy. And I didn't really ever use it, the gain knob, hardly at all, because
Right.
it just wasn't. But I liked the concept of what it was doing. I'm like, I like that it's
all of you that
thickening it
are,
up.
not professional guitar players like Adam. Those are professional terms. Flubby, and fizzy.
Flubby?
Those are in
Not
the
professional,
in the
technical.
guidebook for all electric guitar players. It's
Transparent.
you can find the descriptive words
Those
listed there.
are good words. They work. Nobody wants flubby low end. Nobody wants a flubby
I
bottom.
love the word flubby because some words sound like what they mean. Like the word goop. You're like, ooh, that was kind of goopy. You're like, oh,
I know
yeah.
what it is. Yeah,
You're like,
okay.
I don't want that.
You don't want your soup to be goopy.
No, clumpy.
I guess your stew could be a little goopy. That'd
Sorry,
be okay.
carry on with
There's
your
a
story.
visceral reaction. So yes, flubby. So Dave really tightened up the low end. So it was giving that same thickness that I felt, but it wasn't making the amp break up. And it, I don't know if this is right, but it was almost like the bandwidth of lows that the Nobles was boosting. It was almost like too wide, and you found a sweet spot and just made it more precise.
We kind of took it more towards the voicing of a Tube Screamer without going. You know, the Tube Screamers that I've built have a lot less mid hump than a Tube Screamer. And the green side of the Protein has much more mids than like an ODR one, and has much less bass, it has much less gain. And, we were just trying to dial it in to where it was, if all the knobs are set to noon, it sounds real good. We were kind of obsessive about that, which is a little ridiculous, but we did.
It's not like us at all.
Well,
Let's talk about that for a second. How long did it take you to dial in a good sounding pedal with everything at noon? Let's just acknowledge that right now.
it took the right amount of time.
It took the time it took because we were all doing other things too. Well, Dave, you were gone for what? How long was your longest tour when you were
700 years.
700 years? Yes.
I have lived on a bus extensively. And there's
There's
you get in your bunk and you pull that screen shut, and that's your space. No
there
one's
is
allowed.
parts of it that is an introvert's dream because there's the rules of like you don't bug people in their bunk. We're in the house, people are just like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were in here. And we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Like
door
at
was
my
shut.
house now. Dad, are you in the bathroom? No, go away.
It's another man that's in the bathroom. It's not me.
Who was it that was renting a hotel room to have a bathroom to get away from his kids? Do you guys remember that story?
Yes,
Some
who was
actor.
that?
It made me so happy. His wife
I've
thought
gotten
there
a
were
hotel room with my parents in town who I love, and I would hang out with them all 12 hours a day, the favorite thing.
Just remember your mom's listening.
That's true. I'm sorry. She knows. I mean,
She knows.
I was like, I'll be back tomorrow. Just like left, went to not even like a nice hotel.
Because they were staying at your house.
Yeah, a block away. And I was like, I just need to shut the door and be like just alone for like 10 hours while I sleep. And they're so great. She's like, well, we're not going to bug you, but they're always your parents. So when you're in the room, just every now and then, just wanted to let you know that food's ready, but like you don't have to come out. You're like, well, it's kind of killed my vibe already, so let's just go eat.
I was thinking in here.
I was living my never land.
These are the deep insights that you can continue to receive from the Browne Amps podcast about life.
Some of us
deep
need
philosophical questions.
Some of us need time alone to think and recharge. And as I get older, that's something I feel less bad about. Needing space to let my brain come to zero.
Or noon, as we were talking about.
Or noon.
All of the parts of your brain
like,
ending up at noon.
My brain was
zero was at noon in my metaphor. We had negative 12 and positive 12, but that was a special dial going around the knob. I don't know if everybody
It was
could
a
see
digital
that.
dial that there's just never stopped.
No, it was analog. It was very analog.
It was very analog.
But, to ground it, that is where good ideas come from. I think not for everybody, obviously, but even, when you're mixing, a guy I learned a lot from would always be like, you've just been in here for 2 hours. Like, you need to stop because you're losing perspective. And even building it, that is probably, I think, one of the reasons why we got it dialed in as precisely, because there was some time gaps in between. So you'd make some tweaks. We'd listen to it. Be like, this sounds pretty good. Like, take it on the road for a while. And I'd have enough time to kind of hear it through all the different things too. Like, we weren't testing it through random backline that we rented, to be like, let's test it through 20 amps today. It was really tested over a lot of different amps and time and places.
And I would say that's kind of been, can I say ethos again? Have I said ethos too many times? I think that's kind of been an ethos, part of the ethos of what I'm doing is it's got to work live. It's got to translate. And so I really like taking anything that I'm working on, building whatever, and using it live, making sure that it's a music machine, that it's inspiring, that it, if I build something, I think about this a lot when I'm building guitars. When I'm done setting it up and I sit down to play it, if I don't forget that I'm testing it and start playing music, then it's not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same for amps that I've built, pedals that I've built, we've tested thousands of proteins at this point.
I think I just tested the serial number
3000
yesterday.
Yeah. And I still, when I plug that pedal in, even when I'm repairing them or whatever, I'll get lost in guitar playing, testing pedals. And that just makes me happy every time that happens, because it tells me that we did something cool here, because it's an inspiring machine of music.
It's like your comfortable shoes. I was thinking about it because I love getting new pedals or new plugins now that I'm doing more producing or whatnot. And it's so fun to mess with all the new sound. You're like, oh, it's awesome. But that is the same thing. It just stays on my board because it just feels right, and it feels like guitar to me. I know it sounds very generic, but and I don't think we could have gotten to the level of precision that you dial it into without the sheer amount of time. It's really weird how you can test something into oblivion at home or in the studio, and then you're out on the road for like a week and something doesn't work, and it's like, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really weird. There's something that happens.
Yeah. Live is really honest.
Yeah. It's weird. And doing it enough that there's no fluke nights. Like, right. Everything sounded great. You're like, well, my backline was good, or this happened. So those months, I think, were actually really beneficial years. I know it kills Ben's personality a little bit. I'm sorry.
Whatever. So talk about the difference between, because obviously we're at version 2.2 at the moment. What's the difference between these versions, as it's kind of progressed over the years?
I think it's that you can put it in each side in its own channel, and a true bypass looper would be the biggest.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
That's the biggest switch.
We changed the grounding up. We've changed the grounding up a couple times just to get to something that's really, we don't ever want the ground to fail on the case. And we haven't had an issue with that, but we just kept getting things that we felt like were more bulletproof. And so that was one of the changes. But the biggest change was, we had guys that wanted to be able to put each side into a loop of something like the RGM Mastermind or something cool like that. You had a Boss
ES8 or something. Yeah.
Really cool switcher where, you know, it's programmable, and guys that are doing, you know, live sets every night where they need presets. We wanted to be able to put each side in its own loop. So there's 2 dip switches inside, and if you use a TRS cable on either side, you can put each side in its own loop.
Which is very helpful live sometimes.
So are there any thoughts of, I know we get a lot of questions about top-mounted jacks for the Protein, which is a question I answer a lot for people, but I think we'd answer on the podcast.
I feel like some people are just needy and you can't please them. And so, no, I'm just kidding.
Top-mounted jacks are cool because they let you put your pedals closer together. You know, I didn't do that originally because it's already 2 switches that are fairly close together, and I like to wear boots when I play guitar, and I need to not accidentally hit other things. But having said that, there is no physical room in the Protein with where the pots are and where the board is mounted to put top-mounted jacks in. So it's just not feasible at this time, unless we relayed out the thing completely. And
which then we have to fixate and make sure it sounds just as good as the other one, because when you change the,
perhaps in 9 years or so.
Yeah.
I like I think actually, does it say iteration on our badges?
It says I, which stands for iteration.
And the reason we had talked about doing that was
because we're nerds.
Because we're nerds. I know but I really liked the concept of that word as well, because it simply means the best version at this time of whatever you can come up with. And so many people are like, this is the best. I'm like, there's no such thing as the best, but you can stand behind something and go, with everything I know right now, with where my mental state is at, this is the best iteration that we can do.
And please don't speak to our mental state on the podcast, because I can't guarantee anybody's mental state at this point in time after the last couple of years. But here we are, still present, still trying to survive as so many people. And
so when we can do top-mounted jacks, or when we have any other ideas that we go, this actually, then we will do the next iteration. But at this point,
it's not currently in the works. I'll say that.
Yeah,
I would love to do it, but
I say that.
Well, just
because the sheer amount of
who
work.
Are saying, when's 3.0 coming out, and will there be top-mounted jacks? I can't speak to that right now because it's not currently in the queue. It's not even made it to the queue.
In the queue.
Well, yes, and because I never realized how all the things, which I don't even have to luckily deal with the stuff you guys have to, but just making 1,000 of something, just all the nuances to make that many of something kind of just blows my mind. So we're just figuring all that stuff out well, then to go redesign it.
Yeah, I never thought we were going to make 1,000 proteins. I mean, I thought we might make 100.
I remember we were like, do you think, I was even worried for you, because I was like, oh God, I really hope this isn't a bad idea.
I mean, I've been a really small guitar amplifier repair, builder / repair shop for a long time. And then I toured a lot, and, we made the Protein for Adam, and then other guys were saying, hey, would you make me one? So we did a small run of them.
Like
and we're
10?
Yeah. And, and then we did 100, took a big gulp and did 100 of them. And so, to change and relay out everything, it would require a lot of testing and trial and error to make sure that it was right, because I'm not going to take something that I think is really excellent and lose anything in order to do something like, make it a little more functional with top-mounted jacks. I do see the benefit in that, but...
Yes, and it's just time.
That's a very long answer.
It's just time at this point in time, but we appreciate people's love for the Protein pedal.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And honestly, I say this with all humility on behalf of Browne Amps, but I get so many emails because I deal with a lot of kind of customer service stuff, and I get so many emails from people that just genuinely are blown away by the pedal, and it's a constant source of encouragement to be like, oh, okay, well, let's keep doing this. Because at the end of the day, people get into business for a whole bunch of reasons. The guitar pedal industry is not one to get into lightly.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that think it's a quick buck to make, and there's a lot of logistics. And when you're starting to like try to ship stuff from China, and it's 2 to 3 months wait on, one single piece of the pedal,
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff, it becomes, very, very complicated. But the heart of, I guess, what I know Dave was behind and what we want to do is really provide something of value to the guitar industry, and continue to do that, and, just be able to be good husbands and good fathers, and be good people, and represent, Browne Amps in a way that isn't just this flash in the pan kind of business, that we're here for the long run to try and continue to make pedals that are of high value to guitar players that they can put on their boards and trust and rely on. And there's my sales pitch.
Yeah, it's also because I appreciate it, because, you need outside perspective, and we're too nerdy of just being, guitar players. So I love that, Ben. I love that for you.
It's really special too when somebody who you've listened to for years and who you love their guitar playing, comes to you and says, "Man, this is the best overdrive pedal I have." I mean, it literally blows my mind when that happens, and I'm so grateful. I just feel super lucky.
Yeah.
And I would brag on Dave too, because yes, he had a little repair shop, but also the difference. One of the reason, you've built guitar players you've built guitar.
Build guitar players.
Build guitar.
You don't
players.
know, they're all robots. Dave built them. But you've built guitars and amps and basses for some of my favorite players in Nashville and the Christian music world and in the pop world. Like, you've done all of that. And every time I learn a new skill, it's shocking how things that can be similar are completely different. But you built one-off things for someone. You'd test the wood, you'd make sure it was just perfect for the person you were making it for. And then trying to channel that into something that we were talking about that could be consistent over 3,000 units is just such a different way of approaching things as well. And so that's what is really fun about the Protein is,
but you can't
done that.
You can't like sacrifice your ideology just to, make product. Like we wouldn't be willing to, swap out a part for something that didn't work as well just because it was more readily available. I mean, there's been long periods of time where we haven't had pedals available because we couldn't get specific parts. And I'm not just going to sub out an inferior part just to make pedals. I'm not, and that's not trying to brag on myself. It's just, I just wouldn't do it. It's not worth it. I remember when Tesla bought up all of a component that we needed, and we luckily were able to find somebody that had, 1,000 of this particular part, and it kept us going for a while. But
it's probably, I don't even know. It's like it's a brag. It's also not a brag. So I was thinking about that for me. I'm like, I wish I could sacrifice sometimes my fixation on the principle behind it to make money. So if anyone's like, oh, it's about making, I'm like, no. We should probably care more about just making money. Just like, but
perfectionism
it has to
is
be
death,
right.
But excellence is incredibly important.
Ooh,
and that's quotable. That's a seriously hard journey for me. That's been a seriously hard journey for me, and something that you guys have helped me with is like, we're not going for perfect. We're going for excellent, because I could get lost down the rabbit hole of perfectionism for years on end, and maybe I have.
Maybe I have
at times.
No, I think there's there is a fine line, and we're trying to find that fine line of being able to put pedals in the hands of people, because there definitely have, like you said, been some periods where it's like we just don't have pedals at the moment, and that's not for lack of people wanting them. So but for there to be consistently over the last couple of years, consistent orders and consistent people still asking for it, I think that speaks volumes about the quality of the product. That it's not just, hey, here's a new fancy pedal that people liked for 6 months and then moved on.
Screen print a fun graphic on it and just...
And we're so grateful that people love it and want it. I mean, it's massive for us.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about in relation to the Protein? Because, come on, guys, we're getting, 25 minutes into our podcast here.
Oh, man. Quick. So we dialed in the green side, and kind of split the difference between the mid scoop and the mid boost of a tube screamer. And I think we got that dialed in. Dave got that dialed in because we kept the magic of that fattening stuff and added some of those magical mids back in without making it like a tube screamer to where it's a little more specific. And I guess in the blue side,
let's talk about how we measured the harmonic frequency of the unicorn horn and tried to match that on a
the hardest part was the journey
analysis
through the candy cane mountains
to find the unicorn.
Shockingly less food than you would think in the candy cane
Less
mountains.
edible food.
Less edible food.
Yeah, I mean, you can only run on sugar for so long.
Yeah, it's hard. You just annoyed at kids, like drinking out of cups with nothing in it and saying there's tea. Like, this is not Never Never Land. I need food.
So then we took the blue side, and we wanted to retain the magic of an old black box blues breaker that I had. But, it didn't, you had to run the output all the way up. And, some of the things about it that were wonderful also made it not as user-friendly or accessible in any situation. So we started messing with that, and, we wanted it to have lots of headroom and lots of output and the right kind of compression. So it feels amazing, but doesn't sound compressed. You don't want to hear squish. There's another musical term.
You want to feel squish, but not hear squish.
Right. So, we spent a lot of time on that. And the blue side will give you a light overdrive is real dynamic and will clip if you dig in, but it also won't fall apart if you hit it with another drive or a fuzz or something else. And that's one thing I love about the blue side is you can smack it with the green side, and all of a sudden you have this really cool multi-stage and multi-clipping, thing that kind of feels a lot like, pedals into amps and things like that we love that we don't get to experience as much of anymore. Cranked pedals into cranked amps.
I think the blue side is a little beefier too, as well, right? Because I feel like I would say the low end. What I like,
we gave it big boy pants.
Yeah, it's that nice tight low end that we want.
I don't think we can say those.
I don't know if I can say, but because the thing that I appreciated about what you did with the Protein that makes it usable to me. This is like the key thing on both sides, and it's what I love about your amps as well. And I've told you this. There's a bunch of other companies' amps I would play because I pretty much just play the amps you've built for me, all in different genres or whatnot. But a lot of amps, I'd turn up the bass to make it sound fatter, and it would be kind of woolly and all the other words we've said. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. Flubby. I didn't want to say it again.
I love that word.
I need like a checklist up here.
No, it's the right word for what you're describing.
So you like turn it up, you're like, well, I love how this feels, but this is way too much low end, and it's not really dialed into the right frequency. It's kind of abrupt, and so it's not going to work. So then you turn it down, it's too thin. Same thing with even where the trebles are voiced on amps and pedals, and everything you build, you just have a way of finding the right things to highlight in that EQ spectrum. And I think that's what the Protein has that makes it useful, is where the low end and the presence and everything is sitting makes it very forgiving for most amps. I haven't found an amp where I go, okay, if I turn the treble up, it's accenting something bad in this matchless or Fender or something like that. And I think that's what's so, I don't want to say even just magical, use that, but it makes it so useful to have.
We spent a lot of time trying to get the EQs right on everything that we've done. We've done that with guitars, amps, pedals, where we get it into a live situation and just start tweaking it until it sits where we need it to sit.
What about because the tone knob as well on the blues breaker side, the blue side, and I've told a lot of people this, like mess with the tone control because it's very interactive with the gain knob. However much drive you have, the more drive you have, it's going to be brighter. So sometimes I will, run my tone knob to the left.
The gain and the tone are very interactive.
But if I have my gain down, the drive down, I might have the tone all the way up. And that's one thing that a bunch of guys who messaged me have said, oh, I didn't even think about it because it didn't look right to have the tone all the way to the left. And I always say, well, yeah, if the drive's up, though, it's kind of meant to do that because it gives you more flexibility with different backline. You can go from really chimey, to if you have a dark amp and vice versa. But I love, lost my train of thought. I need to drink my coffee. But I like where you put the tone control on the blue side because it has this chime factor that isn't ice picky. So I don't know what you did there, but I appreciate it.
I just put it right underneath the gain and the level controls because I felt like it made the most sense.
I don't know if you should share that. Other people might.
It's right there.
It's proprietary, but I'm going to give that one away.
If you look at your pedal, and you'll notice that tone knob is right there. You'll see it.
If you haven't been able to find it,
if you haven't found it, it's right there. It says tone.
Put the whiskey down. Turn the lights on. It's right below the two knobs.
That sounds pretty amazing to me. And lights off, playing guitar.
Well, that's because we made it so everything sounds good at noon, Ben. That's why it took so much time.
Turn everything to noon.
See? You're thankful.
So what we're trying to say is at noon, turn off all the lights, pour yourself a glass of whiskey, play some guitar.
Play some guitar. Well, thanks for kind of sharing some insights into the Protein as a pedal and kind of giving people some background on that. It's helpful, I think, for people to know where it came from. As Adam and I often talk about this, the reality of anything that you do is the story really matters. And I think the story of the Protein is what interested me when I kind of started jumping in and helping out with everything that you guys were doing. It wasn't just, oh, here's another pedal company. It was Dave's story is amazing and who he is and what he brings to the table and what he brings to the guitar industry. Adam's story is interesting, and then the story of how this pedal came about. So yeah, it's
that hurt. Dave's story is amazing, and mine's interesting.
I wasn't gonna say
like a documentary on. I won't say a disease because it will offend someone, but
it's
car accidents. I don't know.
Adam's story is also amazing.
We're just glad he's here. Homeschool, like
I meant that in the nicest way. That was taken completely nuts. So that's it. I'm going to end the podcast on that note. So thanks for listening, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast wherever you can find it.